This is part 2, and in part 2 we're going to do a practical demo. This practical demo is actually going to allow user to enter numbers one at a time and displays the average of the numbers entered so far. And then we need to add a reset button. By the way, this video is very similar to week 5 lecture. If you did see week 5 lecture, like actually you can do that by yourself. There's no problem. Now, just to show you what we are going to do, just get an example. For example, the user entered number 1. I will have an array, and this array I'm going to say, okay, this user entered 1. And then I will actually show you the average. Like the average is going to be what? The sum of all numbers, the sum of all numbers in the array over the number of arrays. For example, here it's going to be 1. Now, let's say the user enters 2. That means I'm going to add here 2 to the array. Okay. And then I will actually calculate, which is going to be 1 plus 2. And then this total, which is going to be 3 over the numbers of the number in array, which is going to be 2. Like the size of the array is going to be 2. Now let's say that he entered, let's say 7. Now 7, that means he's going to say 1, 2, 7. Now to calculate the average, I'm going to calculate the sum, which is 1 plus 2 plus 7. Now it's going to be 10. And now remember that I need to print that over the average, which is 10 over 3. And then we will get a number, which is, this is going to be the average. Now let's say that he entered, for example, 4, and now here this is going to be 4, and etc. Then we're going to calculate the sum of all elements, and then we're going to say, okay, this is going to be 14 over 4. Okay, this is how we do this, and this is how we are going to implement it. Now let's go to the NetBeans. I'm going to use the same project that I were doing. Here I'm going to create a WebInf JSP page. I'm going to call this as average. Okay, I will go back to it, and then I just close all of these applications. I just want to say hello world from average because I want to make this as my welcome file. And how to make it as welcome file? Remember that we need to create a servlet. Yep, let's create a servlet. I'm going to call this as average servlet. And remember to click here, and I'm going to make the link as average. Okay, the URL button. And now here, to make this as a welcome file, the average.jsp, you need to go here. You need to change this. Now, instead of saying this welcome file, instead of sending to test, I want to send it to average servlet. Now, how to do that? Just say average. Now, why I'm saying average? Because remember, this average is being linked with this. And average servlet, if you need to find who is responsible for that, just take the servlet name, which is average servlet, search, and here we go. We found that, and it's inside servlets package, and then we have average servlets. Remember that the green button will do a get request. That means here I will go to the do get, and to go to that page, so say get servlet context, and get the request dispatcher, and then specify the name of the file, and the average.jsp, and then forward everything. Okay, now we can just break this down, save it, run. And here we go. We got hello world from average. It works. This is my welcome file. Now inside average.jsp, I will do the similar things. I will have a form. Okay. And this form will actually take the following. It's going to have an action. And this action will be to the same page, which is average. And the method will be get. Now, as you can see now, I hope that you watched video week 5 video, because I did the same thing, and we are targeting the same do get method again. Now the green button will send this to here, and this form will send this data to here. Now here I have an input, and there's going to be a type. I'm going to say number, because I just need to read numbers. And I can say the name of this as num, and that's all. Now, remember that any form need what? Need a button, which is type. And then here I have submit. And I can have a value, just to say, save your number. Okay. And we can add a break between them, something like that. Yeah, this should work. So let me just make sure that we go to the green button. And here we go. Now, if I enter 1, 2, 3, save your number. Now, how can I make sure that I'm getting the data correctly? Let's print that to the server first. Now, remember that because we are reading this, what I can do is actually just checking if this is not equal to null. I could say request.get parameter. And then here, I just want to check that if this number not equal to null. If it's not equal to null, that means I'm passing you the data. Yeah. And here let me just open braces here. Let's just go down. Okay. Now here, because I'm sending you the data, because remember the green button. Okay, let me just do this here just for 1 second. Let's say system out print line, oh, error, just need out. And here I will print the data that we will receive. And here's a request, get parameter. And then remember that I call this as null. Now, if I run this, you will see that when I go to output, here, I got null. Why I got null? Because the green button is not going to send me any number. However, if I say here 1, 2, 3 and say save your number, now go here to the output, I got 1, 2, 3. And therefore, like I just need to have a very simple if statement here, just to prevent of dealing with nulls. And therefore, here I would say if request.get parameter not equal to null, that means you are passing a number. And remember that I need this as an integer. I would say integer x is equal to again, like the similar thing here. Just gonna get that, but remember that you need to convert this to integer dot parse int, and then this is the data that I wanted to parse. And after you parse this, what we will do with that now, let's go back to the requirements. What we need actually is the following. Now, after we read this, I need to save it into array list, but this array list should be actually keep maintained for request to another request to another request. That means I need this to be stored using a session. Now, how to deal with session? The first thing to deal with a session, remember that the first step 1 is HTTP session. Okay, I just need to say HTTP session. And now I should say session equal request dot get session. Now we got the session. The second thing I should ask about the data structure or the variable that I'm using for tracking my number or my data. Now I'm going to use an array list to save the numbers. Therefore, I'm going to make, say, array list. Okay, array list of integers. I'm going to call this as numbers. Now they will actually ask me to get this array list, just say import. And now remember that what we are going to do, we're going to say session dot get attribute, and this the attribute that I'm looking for is called numbers. Okay, now here they will actually always remember that anytime that you get the data from the attributes, you need to cast it based on the variable type that you have. And here what I have is this. Like I have array list of integer. That means I need to cast this to array list of integer. Now this is the always like number 2 step. Now number 2.1 is to make sure that what you are receiving is not equal to null, because maybe session they don't know what is numbers, and therefore they're gonna return null to you. And therefore here you should say, okay, if numbers equal null, if this numbers is equal null, then I will create what? I will create a array list, which is an empty array list. Just a new array list. And this is how we create an array list. Okay. Now maybe they are saying that you could actually add integer, or you just leave that empty. Doesn't matter, because we say this is integer here. Now remember, this is going to be happen only if the session has no idea what is numbers is talking about, because he doesn't know numbers. He hasn't saved any numbers before. Now, therefore, I create this array list, and now I can deal with this array list as, and I'm sure that this array list is not null because I put this condition. And this is number 3. Like any session that we will do actually is always going to be something similar, which is number step 1, like get the session. Then get the data that you are looking for, asking for that data. If that data is null, then create that data by yourself. And then number 3, start manipulating this. Now, what I want to do is very simple. I just need to take that number, which is x, the one that I read, and add it to the array. And I say numbers dot add, and now I add the integer x to it. Now, is that all? Remember, we always need to save your work with a session, because this is now you manipulate the data in number 3. But in number 4, you need to save these data. Now, how to save data in sessions? Remember that we say set sessions. If you did watch the part 1 of the demo, remember that session.set attribute, it does a lot of things, which is going to store your data on a file or somewhere else. And therefore here, we should say session.set attribute. Now, you might say, okay, but I have numbers. No. We have manipulated the numbers. Here we got a copy of the previous numbers, of the old numbers. Now we add the new numbers to it, and therefore I need to say, you remember the numbers? Again, like see, it's the same name. I'm using the same name, but right now I'm giving you the edited numbers list, which has more numbers right now. And therefore I'm going to say numbers. Okay, let's go here and say numbers. Okay, now until now, actually, if I run this, I will see nothing. But let's see if we have any problem or not. Let's say like save my number, save. Okay, I get an empty string here. I'm not handling an empty string, but by the way, you can handle the empty string if you want. Yeah, this is good to see that. I could say again here, and this is not equal to, uh, okay, I just assume right now, because I don't want to like confuse you with this and making like this very big code. Remember, like just assume that right now we just have valid numbers. Just save your number and it works. Okay, no problem. Now, what I want to do is the following, because we can actually also do try and catch for the integer, but we are assuming we have a good input, except the null thing, we couldn't actually scope that. This is a mandatory. You need to have it. Now, I need to calculate the average. Now, this is here. Calculate the average. Now, how to calculate the average? If we go back to the text, what I were doing actually, I were summing all the data inside the array, and then I print over the size of the array. Now, how to do that here? First of all, let's get integer sum equals 0. And then I will say for, I'm going to use enhanced for loop and say integer, for example, a or n. Okay. And this n from the numbers array. Now, what I will do is very simple. I just say sum plus equal n. Okay, I'm just going to sum all the data, and after that, I will get the average. Now, the average, remember, is going to be double avg, and I'm going to say this is equal to the sum of numbers over numbers dot size. Okay, and this would actually calculate the average. And remember that I need to send this average to first, like to this page. Like I want to see the numbers here, like below this button. How can I say? I can say request dot set attribute, and here I'm going to call this as an avg. Okay, I'm using a request. No need to for a session here. Like I don't need to keep track of this number. I just need to send it and print it on that page. I just need to keep track of the numbers that I have. Now in the average page, I could come here and say like h3 and say receive. Let's say average is here. Remember that I named this as an avj. If we go back here, I named this as an avj. Now, if I save it, I think we will get an error, and you will see that error right now. See, run. We got 2.0. Okay, we got that because we have, like, we need to close the browser to get a new session. Now let's save it. And yeah, we couldn't divide by 0 because the first time when I click on the green button, I was not sending a number. Remember, this is going to be null. Therefore, I'm not going to actually add any number here. And remember that numbers is going to be what? It's going to be an empty array. This is the first time. Okay, for the first time, the number is going to be null, or because it's null, I'm going to create a new array. And here, what I'm saying, number to size. Now, what's the size of this numbers? It's going to be 0. Therefore, just like to skip this, I just want to say f, let's say f, like f numbers dot size greater than 0. Then do these two things. Do the division and do the. Okay, I'm saying that if the number if the size of the array is greater than 0, then you can divide that, the sum, and you can do the request of the attribute. There's no problem. Yeah, let's save it. And let's make sure that we close this. Okay, now let's run. Yeah, let's say 1. Let's say 2. Now I'm not getting this as updated. Let's say 10. Okay, let's say 88. Okay. And yeah, now the only thing that I want to do right now is to reset. Now to reset, if you remember in that video, which is in week 5 video, we did a separate form for that, and we could take this exactly the same, and we're gonna have the same button. However, like this is gonna be reset. For example, reset your array. Okay. Before we reset our array, remember that we are going to send a hidden value. This hidden value is going to help me to distinguish which form I'm clicking on. Am I clicking on the reset your array, or I'm clicking on save your number? Therefore, this hidden is going to have a name. Let's call this as an action. And the value of this, I'm going to call this as a reset. Now, how to make use of this action? Very simple. Just go here after number 1 step here. You could say 1.1 if reset needed. What I should do, very simple, just get the string action and see what's the value of action. say request, get parameter, and I'm looking for the action. I remember that I first need to check that it's not equal to null. I don't need to work with null values. And I want to see the value, if this value is equal to reset or not. Remember that I'm waiting for the value called reset. If I click on this number, if I click on this button, yeah, that means let's go here and let's say action dot equals. And here, what's the value that I'm waiting for is reset. Now, if you are sending me a reset, that means you need me to invalidate the session. This is going to be 1.2, invalidate the session, which is very simple. Just say session dot invalidate. Okay. And now remember that because it's going to be invalid, I'm going to leave that. But remember that we need to rebuild or like to get a valid session. Okay. Get a valid session. Well, I'm not going to do that right now. Let's save it and let's test if this is going to work. Let me just remove this here. Let me add this. And okay, now what we are getting, okay, this is not a button. Submit. Oh, okay. This should be hidden like this. If we refresh, okay. Now reset your, okay, I'm just going to close it and rerun that. Okay, now here, save your numbers. And let's say that I have 9. And now if I say reset my array, I get a problem. Why? They are saying that session already invalidated, and you are asking me to get attribute. You are asking me to get attribute here for numbers, but you are giving me an invalid session. Okay, I make it invalid. Now, how to do that? Say session equal request dot get a session. Now let's see if this works. Let me just close it and run that again. And here we go. Now let's enter, save your number. Let's enter 9. Now we got 5. Reset your array. And yeah, it works. And remember that it's a GET request, and therefore I can see action reset up there. Okay. And yeah, if you have any question regarding this demo, again, in week 5, actually, I saw like some demos on how this works more in details. I don't want to repeat myself, but if you need any help, please reach me out on the lecture time. Thank you.